does, it's crickets.
Yeah.
They're just like look like fearful little people.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it can be a head scratcher at times, and I'm hearing this consistently with engaging teachers.
Mm.
For example, Janelle Threlfall, who's a engaging teacher, said the same thing. Oh my gosh, my whatever class, it's crickets.
Yeah.
Graham Nickel, same thing. You know, he's like, oh, they just like don't say anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think COVID has had an effect. But what was the original question?
How do you like help them come out of their shell?
Come out of their shell.
Be more able to like take risks.
Yeah.
And make mistakes.
Or
I guess feel safe enough to do so or comfortable.
Right. It leads back to the things I said previous. As long as you see that the teacher won't jump on you, won't point you out,
right,
and make fun of you,
right,
or ridicule an answer,
right,
or shoot you down, right. That's really important. So that's kind of a starting place, and that has to do with being open to critiquing and other perspectives and all of that stuff. But even if you kind of award people who take those risks, and there's different ways you can reward that. Not award, sorry, reward. There's different ways you can do that. It's just through like, yeah, that's a good point, right? That makes, if you say something in class and the teacher says, that's a really good point. Well, what happens inside of you? Little endorphins go off and you're like, hey, I did something good.
Yeah.
Right? There's no grade assigned to it, but that shows the teacher, even if it's like something rudimentary and fundamental and isn't earth-shattering, surprising, like, wow, what a great insight.
Yeah.
But it's like a plausible, good insight.
Right.
How you respond to that is really important too, right?
Right.
The student had a good point.
Yeah.
Right? It's a valid point.
Yeah.
Let them know that. Let them feel about that.
Yeah.
Feel good about that. And so things like that can make people feel like, oh, I can say something, right? And and the other things, being open to critique, all that stuff, right? It all plays into creating an environment and community where somebody feels like, oh, I can take a risk, right?
Yeah.
I'll still be accepted here. If I screw up here, I'll still be accepted tomorrow.
Right.
At least by my teacher,
Yeah.
Students might be whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's a good answer.
Okay.
You okay?
Yeah, I just gotta stretch a little.
Okay. Oh boy. What are some of the many roles and responsibilities of the teacher?
Roles and responsibility.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about it much already.
Yeah. I guess that's like the question, the answer.
Right.
All the questions so far.
You are obviously the number one role is for you to help students learn, which is different than I teach. Right. You want to be able to get students to learn. That like you'll have some teachers who like, this is what I do. I teach this way.
Right.
But that might not connect with all students. So then you're like, well, for myself, I try to do something that will connect with most students, right? And then when I have an issue like, wow, this student just isn't getting it, then I might have to approach it differently for that student.
Right.
So your number one role and responsibility is to get students to learn, or to help them to learn, right? Again, you can lead a horse to water, but to create that where they are learning. Number one responsibility and role.
All right.
Second ones have to do with like, well, you are acting as the parent. What's the term for it?
Guardian.
Yeah, you're acting as a parent / guardian. That child is in your care.
Yeah.
So legally, that's why attendance at school, even at high school, is an issue, right? Like if a kid has a study and goes off campus, and then something happens, right? Well, were they on study? Were they allowed to leave campus? But what if they're in class and the teacher says, "Can you guys go get coffees for everybody, including you?"
Right.
And then they have an accident.
And that's on the teacher.
The teacher sent them.
Yeah.
You're responsible for them at that time.
Right.
So, you know, like you become this acting parent, trying to do what's best for this student in the parent's, you know, instead of the parent, right? Trying to act what would be best for the student.
Right.
So that's another role that you have. You don't think about it very much, but there'll be times where you're like, oh, okay, student safety comes first. And so a classic example is a fire drill, right? Where all of a sudden learning is suspended. And our primary objective here is to get people safely out of the building, account for them, all of that.
I guess that kind of role would get amplified on like a field trip or something.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like when I take students on overnight trips, I'm responsible for them.
Yeah.
And you know, when Julian died, a student, I play a role in that. Right. So it's actually a big responsibility that you don't think about very often, and unless it's a field trip overnight or something like that, right? So. Yeah, there are times where you have to think, okay, is everybody going to be safe? Is this communication going to go into everybody's head the same way?
Right,
Because this is actually really important communication.
Yeah.
It's not whether you get a C or a B, it's whether you're actually going to be safe or not. Right? So.
Like, don't leave food out when there's raccoons about.
Yeah, that was actually pretty funny. But you know, it can be different. Where if in this scenario, don't do this,
or don't go to this area or something like that.
That could be death.
Yeah.
So, there was one year on the field trip where this is the year after Julian died, where I told students, listen, there's going to be cliffs over here. They're going to look really tempting to climb because I'm not in direct supervision of you. You're grade 12. You have some free time. I've talked to you about the dangers of being in ocean, open water, riptides, stuff like that. You can't go swimming by yourself. You have to let a chaperone know so that we can be there on the beach and watch and all of that.
Right.
But there are cliffs, right? Don't go climb the cliffs. Very strong possibility you'll fall and potentially die, right?
Right.
So what happens?
They climb.
They go up there. They're up on this.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, I'm like, I was so pissed off with them.
Yeah.
I was steaming because one of the kids who went with them had some learning disabilities, had some social awkwardness to him, wanted to fit in, in the worst way, and followed these nice kids, very nice kids, followed them up in an area where they could have, and it could have tripped over a log walking on the beach, that kind of coordination.
Oh, that's what the kid was.
And this kid is up there, and I'm like, and I know on the backside there's an 80-foot straight drop down to rocks.
Yeah.
I was so upset. So that's where, like, it's the real deal. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you are responsible for their safety.
Yeah.
So, anyways, those are the two primary ones. Other roles are secondary, and I am sure there are other roles, but those are the two that come to mind.